Alley, or Trance Alley. It was a fairly sort of crude affair because there wasn't much in the way of infrastructure. The Water Street was then planked early on, and so they built over the beach, and so it was planked all the way up to about Cambie Street, where it then rises and heads up towards meets Cordova and Richard Street. So then on this side, in the early days before the arrival of the railway, we had a few businesses along here, fairly sort of straightforward ones. The odd commercial wharf out here, because of course you're bringing in supplies into the small town, so if you had a wharf and a boat could actually tie up to it, you could make some money. But we had the beach. And the beach is important because when the fire happened in 1886, roughly where the Water Street Cafe is, which we'll walk up and almost look at, was a hotel, the Regina Hotel, and when the fire came through, it actually spared. That was the only building that got spared in the fire, and the flames actually came up to it and went around it. But there were a whole bunch of foolish men who had a bucket brigade, and today, you think a bucket brigade, the water's way over there. No, the water was like right up at the edge of the street. They were there, buckets, passing them up and throwing it on the blankets that they had draped on the outside of the building. There was one man up on the roof that talked about deciding to leave because things were beginning to get a little hot, i.e. the skin was almost blistering and stuff like that. And they talked about leaving and abandoning their foolish endeavor, watching the flames curl up to the top of the building and pause. And he said the flames then went this way and swept around us, leaving us sitting there watching the fire destroy the rest of the town. And so it was the only building that actually survived. Now, one of the things that defines Vancouver, of course, is that after the fire, it took, I think, less than 10 years before the Regina Hotel was knocked down. Now, pretty much any other town would have been looking to the past a little bit, put a bell jar over the building, put a plaque up and said, this survived, and we could go down there today and it would be the touchstone to our history. Early Vancouverites were kind of like, oh, that's nice, and then boom, down it goes, and let's get on with building the future city. And I think the fire has defined that sort of notion of us as let's get on with, getting on with stuff, and let's not really worry about the future. But what does happen, though, downtown, the reason for being back here, is that what you can see, if you look all the way down this edge of buildings, right down to where Carroll Street comes in, and then all the way down this way to the train station, it's one straight line. And this is the influence of the railroad, because when they arrived in town, they started building the infrastructure in the 1886 here. They built a long wharf parallel to Water Street. And so instead of the finger piers that we're so used to seeing, they built just one long, huge wharf, and then they built the train line. And where that bend is, where Alexander Street is, the train line essentially came in at the foot of Main Street at Alexander, just in behind on the beach. And then instead of coming in on a curve like this, they just